Good morning, everyone. Before we start today's lecture, you might have received an email from me on Saturday, whether you have started the Coursera course or not. So kindly, you'll find a Excel sheet in the drive that has been shared with you, the folder that has been shared. Kindly type a yes and no over there. We just need to see how many of you have registered and how many not. So I'm giving you 5 minutes of time to go to the Google folder that I have shared with you. There, outside the folder itself, you'll see like you don't have to go into your lab batches, but outside that only you will see there's an Excel sheet which mentions course registration for Coursera course, right? So kindly click on it. You'll see your enrollment number and your name. Just type a yes and no whether you have started it yet or not. So I'm giving you some time to do that before we start today's class. I hope everybody has typed it. So we'll start with today's session. In case you have not, once the lecture gets over, kindly make a note that you either type a yes or no against your name about whether you have enrolled in the course or not. Right. So we'll start with today's session. So today is actually the last topic for Unit 1. Topic is importance of interpersonal communication in today's organization. Uh, Interpersonal as well as intercultural. Okay, that are the two things that we'll be discussing today. Can we have the opening remarks, please? Opening remarks for the session. Fine. I suppose the person is absent for today's opening remarks. So we're actually going to look into skills that help you, because as I said, we are not just supposed to be limited to ourselves, whether we are setting up a business or we are joining an organization, but we'll be actually meeting people, collaborating with people, and moving ahead. Right. Moreover, we'll be expanding our businesses to other countries and other cities as well. So, interpersonal communication and intercultural communication are very important in today's organization. The reason being that there'll be people who will be speaking different languages, people who will be brought up in different environments, and their way of thinking would be different. So how do we try and create a balance between our way of thinking and the other person's way of thinking is what we'll be discussing throughout in today's session. Right. So we're not, as I said, we're not machines, and we do not actually just stay to ourselves. We require something, some platform where we would talk and share our feelings. Maybe sometimes we don't talk to people orally. We'll write messages. We might have a blog that we own, or certain people have YouTube channels that work around, and you try to express yourself in different ways. Similarly, when you are in an organization, it's necessary that there are certain people with whom you are comfortable, as well as you are confident enough that the person is not going to leak your secrets. Right? Everybody at your workplace cannot be your friend. Right? So we must have few friends at workplace who can give us honest feedback. Not everybody does it. Right? So honest feedback means if your presentation is bad, the person will tell you on your face, you could have prepared better. This is not your style. This is not that. Right? These are the honest reviewers. Others, what they'll do, yes, you did very nice, excellent. Just it's the boss. He always wants to find faults. And these are the people who are the dishonest ones, who will not give you an honest critic of what you have done. Right. So it's very important to have a few of your colleagues whom you can call your friends, with whom you can share information, share your emotions and feelings, or maybe you can share your fears, and you are quite sure that they'll not leak the information to everybody else. So how do we do it? We do it by sitting together, brainstorming, pulling out ideas, and working together. Right? Interpersonal skills actually are skills to talk and communicate within that periphery of your organization, where you have few colleagues with whom you're supposed to work very closely. There are rest with whom you don't have to work very closely, but you have to report to. Let's say I can express my views with the people with whom I'm sitting in my office, yet I have to communicate to my head of the department. So the relationship that we nurture between people sitting in the office and the relationship that you nurture with your head of the department would be a little different. Right? You cannot just go there and tell him, I had a very bad fight at home, my day was not good. I can tell this to my colleagues, but the day was very bad, it began on a very wrong note. I cannot go and tell that to my head of the department, right? So I'm just trying to explain to you that this interpersonal skills means skills that you develop to communicate with your colleagues. One, colleagues means people who are working with you together at the same level, with your superiors, that is people who are above you in the hierarchy of working, and to your friends. Please remember, all colleagues are not your friends. Let's say if you take our institute, we are more than 500 faculties. Everybody is my colleague, but not all 500 are my friends. I hope you understand the difference. Let's say, for example, you are a class of 60. All the 60 are your classmates, but there would be particular 5 people who are your friends and particular 2 3 people who are your best friends, right? So this is how we can also have an very friendly environment, yet professional. It should not be okay, she's my friend, so I can, if she does not do the work, it's fine. But if I'm the team leader, she's in my team, she does not do the work, she's my friend, is good. But I have to tell her that, see, you have to work on time, you are my friend, that's very nice, we can go and have tea together, we can have a small party together, but when we are at the workplace, you have to be professional. So professionally developing skills. Now we need to understand that the people whom we meet in our offices or at our workplace, they are more like our mentors. Mentors means they are the people who teach you lessons. Lessons in the sense, they'll tell you, okay, you done it this way, but next time, you can take care and you can do it something different in this way. Fine. So mentors at that point, what they'll do is they'll help you distinguish between what you did correct, what you can improve, and what are your potentials, that you are still not working on. Most of the times people tell us that, you are far better, but you are not working properly. So mentors are those people who will tell you exactly where you need to work. Let's say, your PowerPoint was excellent, but you were too fast when you were speaking, it all flew away. When you discussed the idea with me, you were very clear, but when you had a presentation to make in front of the organization or department, I don't know why your ideas were all crazy. It went offbeat, sort of a thing, right? So these people will mentor you into becoming a better person. That's what their job is. Now, at times, as I told, we as human beings, we cannot stay alone. Communication is an essential for us. We have to tell something. If being it even a small child, the child will cry when it is hungry. To communicate and tell. You have forgotten me. You are supposed to feed me. Similarly, if you don't talk to anybody at your workplace, what will you do when you actually require help? See, when you require help, does not mean that you are somebody who's not capable of. But doing everything altogether on your own would overburden the individual. And then once you are overburdened, you cannot finish your task within deadlines. So at that time, this things actually come into hand is that when you have good terms, when I say good terms, is mean you have been working with people, you have talking to people, they'll help you out, and as a team, you will be able to achieve any deadline or any task within the given time. Right? Now, everybody is not specialized. Why we need somebody else's help? We're not specialized into everything in our field. We are actually specialized into particular things. So that is why roles and responsibilities are given. Right? Let's say I am professor. I know maths, but I cannot be working in the accounts section of the university. Because there is a other specialization that comes into a part. It's not just accounts. The person handles it well. I cannot handle the security management or the hostel management. There's somebody who's been designated the work. Does not mean that I don't have the capability, but I have specialized into something else. That person is specialized into another field. So the role and responsibility, we are very well aware, is given in such a manner where the person uh, has specialized, or this person is qualified, or the person also has interests. Let's say there are many qualified professors in our university. Few of them are interested into this youth festival, organizing games at department level, or maybe there would be different clubs that are running in your department. Some of them have been given the duty of taking care of the club or the activity of the department. Why? Because they have also displayed their interest into it, which does not mean that the other faculties cannot do it or the other professors cannot do it, but they are not interested into that kind of field. They're interested into something different. Right? So that's why roles are assigned, and we work in teams, and that's why interpersonal communication is really important. So we have a reconnecting statement. So you have to just state whether the statement is true or false. One needs to have people at the workplace who are more like mentors than mere colleagues. Yes, you are absolutely correct. As I said, they cannot be mere colleagues. They have to be mentors, people who help us improve. As I said, you have to be a learner for life. Today, I have learned code, or maybe today I have learned something in English. I can speak, but every year the English dictionary is updated. Right? Many words are added yearly in the Oxford dictionary. So if I have got the entire dictionary in 2019, does not mean that 2020 does not have nothing or doesn't have anything new to teach, right? So updating yourself with the help of mentors. What I'll do is I've seen a note that you do not remember who has the opening and closing remarks. In the same folder after today's lecture, I'll share the list where you can go back and you can see who does the opening remarks when. Fine. So let's move ahead. You are absolutely correct that we need mentors, not only colleagues. We need colleagues, but few of them would mentor us. So that's absolutely correct. There's a small video that we have, and I'm playing it for you. It's called the cultural iceberg.
To understand cultures have in common. A significant feature of an iceberg is that most of it is under the water, and you can only see about 10 to 15% above the surface. From above, the rest of it is a bit of a mystery. We know it's there, we just can't observe it easily. When we look at a culture, we find the exact same characteristic. When you visit another country for the first time, you will notice lots of small differences in how people dress, the food they eat, music they listen to, and generally how they behave and how they do things. These are the aspects of a culture that we can observe and experience easily using our five main physical senses. Let's look at some examples of the types of things we find above the surface. First of all, there will be the language. You might not understand it, but you can hear it and see it, so it is obviously there. Next come all the different forms of art, including music, dance, cinema, painting, sculpture, theatre, and architecture. Cultures are maintained through their traditions, customs, and rituals. Closely linked to these are the different religions which are associated with particular cultures. Food is more often than not central to a region's identity, and what people eat and how they eat it and who they eat it with can give us an insight into their ways of life. How people from other places dress differently is also very noticeable at first, although maybe less now than in previous eras. Above the surface, we can also see a culture's institutions, which include its organizations and societies, and its laws and practices. Lastly, on this iceberg, we can see manners, which basically refers to the ways in which people can be polite and show respect to the people around us. Tourists on their holidays interact with foreign cultures at this level, which is perfectly fine. But for a deeper understanding of a culture, then we must take the plunge and find out what's going on down below. Language is a fundamental part of culture, and in this situation is the link between above and below the surface. As we begin to descend, we find the things that people think about and can probably describe or explain using the words of their language. We have five examples on our iceberg, which are beliefs, ideals, norms, roles, and concepts. When we talk about beliefs, we aren't just talking about religion. Religion is the institution that we can experience above the surface. The belief systems of a culture are fundamental to how it views such things as education, science, history, politics, and all its other institutions in general. A culture's ideals are the generally agreed upon understanding of what is best for the individual and for the society as a whole. A good example of this is the American dream, which is a somewhat vague yet very compelling idea about working hard and taking social responsibility in order to achieve financial, political, and social freedom through individual and family. The norms of a culture are basically the behaviors and actions of people which are considered by the society as normal and not unusual. Human beings are naturally conservative in many ways, and throughout our history, anything unusual or out of the ordinary had likely to mean danger. Everybody within their lifetime will take on many different roles. For example, every man will play the role of a son. Many will go on to become husbands, fathers, and then grandfathers. Society offers countless roles that individuals work towards and take on as part of their identity. Our gender, ethnicity, economic status, job or career, and personality determine which kinds of roles we will take on. The concepts of culture are its ideas and general ways in which people think about things, which is an endless list that includes concepts about the importance of family, what it means to be a good friend, the importance of individuality, privacy, and how to be happy, along with more abstract ideas about innovation, time, and life itself. Lastly, we come to myths. In many contexts these days, the word myth has come to mean stories that are probably not true, but real myths are much, much more than myths. A The myth is a very old story that, whilst may not be 100% physically true, contains a meta-truth. This is a truth that is vital to our reality, but on a level beyond descriptive factual language. Myths provide us with a link to the deepest depths of the iceberg, because down here, language is not capable of completely describing the abstract nature of what we find. At the deepest levels of the cultural iceberg are the emotions and feelings that people generally have. Because of the limitations of language here, cultures must rely on the arts to give us insights and clues to help us understand what is going on and to help us explore the meaning of such things as values, desires, assumptions, tastes, and attitudes. Let's begin with the core values of the culture. By values, we mean the feelings people have towards the most important aspects of humanity. So how valuable is friendship? Is it worth more than family or loyalty to your employer? Is success and wealth more important than generosity? The values of a culture include evaluations of honesty, courage, integrity, humility, and many other qualities. What do people want? At a superficial level, we would all probably want to win the lottery. So does this mean all we desire is money? Of course not. We desire the things that money can bring, such as safety, power, convenience, and let's be honest, the hot, sexy girl or guy of our dreams. But there are also the things that money can't always help us with, like friendship, respect, health, and peace of mind. Most intercultural and communication courses warn us that we shouldn't assume anything, but in reality, this is impossible. We all make countless assumptions every minute of every day. We assume the light will come on when we flick the switch, that the bus will come not too late, that a good performance will be rewarded, or that our kindness will be returned. Maybe it is how we react to situations when our assumptions are not met that is really important here. Our attitude towards something is how we have decided to think and feel about it. It can be positive or negative and influenced by our emotions. Having a bad attitude, having an attitude out of step with other people within the culture, can make life very uncomfortable for the individual concerned and for everyone else that comes into contact with them. The word taste is mostly associated with food, but in the broader sense, it simply means the things that people like and dislike. So people can have different tastes in almost everything, including stories, fashion, music, movies, and even other people. Finally, there are the things that influence the culture from the outside. These are the things over which the culture has no control. To appreciate how much climate and geography influence the culture, just imagine a cold, mountainous village somewhere in the middle of a vast continent, then compare it to a coastal city in the tropics, and think about the differences in the challenges their populations face every day. Demographics is concerned with the details of a population, including how many people there are, the percentages of each gender, the amount of people in each age group, and the location of each of these. Right now, in the early part of the 21st century, the world has never seen such powerful mediums of communication. Undoubtedly, there is fierce competition to control the flow of information, which in turn has a huge impact on the direction and development of our cultures. Certainly, in the modern world, and perhaps throughout history, most cultures have had little control over the economics that affect them. It is fair to say that richer, more powerful cultures have always exerted influence over the others. Whether by accident or design, the export of American culture over the last 100 years or so is a good example. Since the very first human beings began using stone tools, the rate of human innovation has gathered pace exponentially. It is reasonable to suppose that the dizzying rate of technological advances so far this century will continue to develop ever more quickly into the future. So it is also reasonable to wonder how human cultures will cope with such changes. To summarize, an iceberg makes for a very useful metaphor because of its hidden depths. In relation to culture, the top of the iceberg that we can observe easily is all about the things people do, their behaviors and their practices. But we find that most of a culture is below the surface, and that these are the things that we can't observe so clearly. These are the parts of a culture that come from people's thoughts and feelings, and are therefore much more difficult to identify and understand.
So we have seen a video, and now we have this statement. Beliefs in the cultural iceberg are found on the surface. So what do you think after you have seen the video? Very quick, Jai. Very nice. Oh, now I've got everybody's answers. Very good. Yes, you are correct. On the surface, you cannot find the beliefs. Beliefs are found beneath. They lay. They are quite deep, and they lay within. So, why is it important? To cross-cultural communication or cross-cultural interaction is not new. Let's take English for example. You all know that words in English have never been their own words only. They have been an mixture or an amalgamation of different words from across the globe, right? So when we see it today, we also have this act of traveling to different parts of the world as a part of maybe a holiday or as a part of our job or as an expansion of our organization. So adaptation is what we need to do. Let's say this is not a new thing or a new concept. Darwin had always mentioned that the survival of the fittest, somebody who will adapt to or will fight, will survive. That's the same mantra that we use for our organization as well, right? Let's take any example of a school. Why school A, B, C? The same kind of teachers, same kind of textbooks, but certain schools have a different way of dealing with things, right? So that's why they survive. Certain would close down. That's just a simple example of a school that I'm taking. When take the example of any organization, uh, let's say certain hotels work a lot, like that they get a lot of customers, be it whatever the season or whatever the reason, right? They're the first places that come to our mind. Why? Because they have adapted to the change. They have not only trying to give you what you have tasted and what you have grown up with. They're trying to help you with not going to any foreign country and tasting certain dishes at the same place itself. So that's adaptation. So you have to adapt to places, and that's why intercultural communication is very important. We need to know how things work. Let's say if it's quite obvious our upbringing and our environment will always affect our intercultural communication, but we can always improvise. Let's say there's somebody who's grown up in India and has a different upbringing or has been surrounded by different kind of a culture, then somebody who's brought up in the United States. Let's say take a simple example that kids growing up in the United States after their legal age, or maybe at times quite at smaller ages as well, they start earning, or maybe they say separate from their parents' house and they live elsewhere. They have their own houses. We usually stay up with our parents uh, till we are there, right? So that's a little different things that we have. So even it's As I said, it's not only India and America or the United States. Even if you take UK and the United States, even the languages and the spellings that we write differ. It's the same English with the different spellings, right? So even they also find cultural differences because of the culture in which they are brought up. So you actually need to be a little informative about how things work in a particular culture. We just need to know initially what is above the iceberg, and then slowly and gradually we can start learning about what is below, right? When somebody is expected to work in some other country apart from his own country, right, and is exposed to these changes, he experiences a cultural shock. Now, what do we mean by cultural shock? Cultural shock is defined as the anxiety and the disorientation experienced when a person is made to operate in an unknown culture. So initially, we have this feeling: how can they do this? It never happens in my country, right? How come they can just survive on a burger and fries? We have a full-fledged menu, and when we are eating, so this initial shock that you get because of a cultural difference is termed as a cultural shock, and you feel a little anxious in the sense, will I be able to survive here? They don't have. I'm just giving an example of food, the reason being it's easier to connect, right? So the difference in the food habits, moreover it could be the difference in presentation habits, or putting down ideas, etc. So this anxiety would happen in the initial stages, right? There are various ways to overcome it so that the employees are um, or they become a little comfortable, they settle in, and they try and adjust to each other easily. There are programs that run. Now, why do we need to settle down people and not have people who are anxious? The only reason is because the efficiency of the employees would be affected. Whether the person is a local person or an immigrant, we need to give them a positive environment so they can actually work hand in hand and move forward, so that not only the organization progresses but they also progress, right? There are a few intercultural and interpersonal skills that you need to develop. One is communication. So if you wish to study in certain countries, they'd ask you, the basic requirement is the language. Now we can understand why, right? So that you don't feel lonely, anxious, or depressed when somebody says something and you are not able to understand it. So their first basic requirement would be that you learn that particular language. Let's say if you wish to move to Germany, you should know German. One. And two, they also take English proficiency tests, or they take the English entrance test. Why English? Because it's a global language. So by the time you get a little time to learn German or any other language that you are supposed to, you can use English. You can survive, right? Then we should learn the courtesy and the manners. So manners and etiquettes. Let's say they have a manners, or we also have been developing manners of saying or wishing greetings. That is, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and asking about the well-being of the person. At times, even the smallest task you have done, you should thank the person. So you'll say thank you, and when somebody says thank you, you can say most of us use the word it's okay, but we could also replace it by saying it was my pleasure, right? Then flexibility. You should be flexible enough to adjust yourself within the environment. Let's say initially it becomes a little difficult, but with time you will be able to do it. So flexibility in terms that, fine, I've been given the most difficult task, it's okay, I can do it, that's my capability. Motivating yourself, trying to complete things within the given deadline would create a positive environment. Then your behavior along with your professional skills. Behavior means even if somebody is shouting at you, or somebody is scolding you without any fault of yours, professional behavior or would suggest that you don't get angry and you start shouting to the other person. Let the person first complete, and then you can put forward your case. Right? That's a behavior that we usually would try to maintain in a workplace. Next would be accountability. You should gain the trust for the work that you have done. You should gain the trust through the work that you have done of your organization, right? And next skill, one of the skills that you could or you should have is collaboration and cooperation. You should collaborate to progress better. You should cooperate with people. You should be cooperative. You should agree to something even if you find it a little weird. Usually good ideas are weird in the beginning and then they start flourishing. So instead of just saying, no, no, this idea will never work, why not give it a try? Is what you should do in case you are working with teams, right? Maybe your crazy idea did not work out, the other person's crazy idea would work out. Or sometimes your crazy idea works out, the other person's crazy idea does not work out, right? So these are a few skills that you should have, whether it's interpersonal or intercultural. Knowing somebody's culture could be difficult, but right now we should know what is above the iceberg at sometimes the initial stages. After some time, you can start learning or going into the deeper aspects that is below the water. That's the uh, iceberg that is below the water. Right? So this is what we have for today. With this, we complete our unit number 1, that is dynamics of communication. Do we have any question and answers, or do we have any doubts? Very good. There are no doubts. Lovely. So in that case, I'll just repeat what we did. We did intercultural and interpersonal communication. Why interpersonal and intercultural is important? As I said, we cannot not communicate. And when you are working into groups, or when you are working into an organization, you cannot be the only one who's working. You need to collaborate with a team of people, right? So when you collaborate, you need to maintain certain decorum, or you need to have certain skills that you polish. Certain people have the art of getting things done. Let's say even if that person is the laziest person in your group, you might have done certain group projects, right? There would be one person in the group who could make him or her work. That's actually an art or a skill. That same skill we need to have when we are doing it in a workplace, the skill of getting things done, right? So interpersonal and intercultural communication is important because we do not work alone, we work in teams, we collaborate, and we have expanded ourselves to the world, right? Moreover, these behaviors would help you progress. You'll know something new. You'll be able to learn something new. And when you learn something new, it means that you are ever growing. When you stop learning, it means you have stopped at a place and then your growth stops. Right? So that's why we should know about intercultural and interpersonal communication. Right? Few skills I have mentioned. There are many skills from which you can refer to from your reference book. So few skills that we should have is, one is communication. Next would be courtesy and etiquettes, flexibility, professional behavior, collaboration, and cooperation. These are a few important ones which I'm mentioning. These are not the only ones, but a few important ones which you can also look into. Now, as we know, it's time for our quiz. So this is our quiz for today. You can start attempting your quiz now. I hope you can access the quiz.
ઉભી રહે હવે હવે 5 જ મિનિટ છે. એ લોકો ટેસ્ટ અપિયર કરે છે. અટેન્ડન્સ ની તૈયારી કરું છું.
મારે તમને છે ને આ લેક્ચર ક્યારે પૂરું થશે? I want to treat you with a cup of coffee. Imagine chatting that lecture શરૂ હતો ને
2 મિનિટ હવે 10 મિનિટ જ છે. હું 2-4 ઇન્સ્ટ્રક્શન મારી દઉં ને મારી ના ના મારે ભણાવો તો પૂરું કરે ને. હાર્ડ છે વળી ટેસ્ટ. અમુક લોકોને 3 મસ્ત છે ને પીપીટીમાં ચેન્જીસ કરવા માટે ક્લાસ થઈ તો એટલી મોસ્ટલી તમને આ લોકો છે ને આ 4 નંબરમાંથી ચેન્જ કરના તો હીરો ખબર તો મસ્ત છે. હા એક જ મિનિટ પહેલા હું તને લિંક મોકલી દઉં યાર. I was so excited. પૂછો યાર તું જસ્ટ ક્લિક કર. હમણાં ઉભી રહો 10 મિનિટ પતાવી લઉં. મારે ડાયરી માં લાગે આ બધાને હું છે તને શીખવાડીશ. ડાયરી છે કેવી કેવી લીવ બતાવે છે. મેં એવો લુક આપ્યો બીજું એને લાસ્ટ પડી છે. હું કામ કરતી હતી. તારે એમ છે મેડમ યુ આર આસ્કિંગ અ વેરી રાઇટ ક્વેશ્ચન ટુ ધ વેરી રોંગ પર્સન. યુ શુડ આસ્ક ઇટ ટુ ડોક્ટર સાગર 1262. 54 માંથી 42.
Very good. I can see already 48 responses. That's so nice. Like 2-3 minutes more for the quiz. Fine. Now I see all of you have attempted the quiz. That's very good, and I can see the scores as well. Very well done. There's a little announcement. With this, we complete Unit 1. So tomorrow we'll have a unit test, similar kind of a unit test, where we'll include all the 5 topics. And it would be a similar kind of a test. Maybe you have to answer a few questions in 1 or 2 words, and the rest you have to select. Maybe true or false, or out of the 3-4 options that are given, you have to select the correct option. So for tomorrow's lecture, please be prepared. We have a unit test. We'll be discussing the test as well. Do not worry. This way, we are trying to create a revision of whatever topics we have completed before we begin and go on to the second unit. Right. So a similar kind of a test will be there. As already asked, I'll be updating the list where who is giving the remark for which lecture. Instead of writing the lecture numbers, what I'll do is I'll also mention the unit numbers there, so we don't have any kind of confusion, no scope of confusion at that place, right? So whatever we do, kindly keep updating in the folder. So whenever I update something, I'll drop a message in the WhatsApp group where I've been added with you guys, and you can check your folder. When I say Google folder, this is what you have to check, and you can see whatever new has been added there. Fine. So people who have already enrolled in the Coursera course, that's great. People who have not, kindly make sure you do it by the end of the day and let me know by updating in the list that we already have. I see already approximately 30 people out of 54 have registered. That 50% of you have already registered, but all of us need to do it. It is a compulsory thing. So kindly go through it and register yourself for the course. And now I'll take the attendance for the day. I'll just call out your name. You can either unmute yourself and say a yes or no, or you may write a yes and no in the chat box, whatever is comfortable in your case. So enrollment number 2. Five. Okay, got it. 8, got it. 9, 10, 12, 16, 17, 19. Enrollment number 19, Vishwa Doshi, absent. Which is present, got it. 24.
Yes, ma'am.
Enrollment number 24, Nirav Gilani.
Yes, ma'am.
25, 26, 29, 31, 34, 35, 38, 44, 46, 47, 49, 50, 50, Anjan Koradia. 51, 53, 54, 56, 58 has already typed. 65, 67, 67, Bautik Namera. 68, 69, 22, 73, 82, 85, 89, 91, 96, 100, 101, 102, 103, 106, 108, 117, 118,
Yes, ma'am.
119, 120, 121, 125, 126, 131, 134, and 144. For today, I think we have only one person who's absent. That's Bautik Namera, enrollment number 67. Right, so we're done with the attendance. Tomorrow we have a unit test, so kindly go through the material for this unit. I'll be uploading today's PPT as well in the e-content. I've already uploaded the previous ones. Go through them. We'll have a similar kind of a test, that is either 1 or 2 words or maybe options that are given to you. It could be a mixture of the two. So do not worry about it. You've been performing very well in the test that we take for each topic. So I am very positive about you performing very well in the unit test as well. So good luck to you all for tomorrow's test. Fine. Thank you, class. Have a nice day.